All right, we can get started. Welcome to today's Frontline Friday session. We're excited to have you here. We'll be covering our communications for Frontline, so streamlining operational and corporate communications. I'm Chelsea Quinn, and I'm joined today by Ethan Lee to co-present. If you haven't joined us yet for Frontline Fridays, it is a program built to help teams deploy, scale, and succeed with Microsoft's Frontline tools. It focuses on real-world impact, hands-on learning, and community-driven knowledge sharing. If you'd like to register for future sessions, catch up on past recordings, or stay updated, head over to aka.ms/Frontline Fridays blog. And just a quick look at what's ahead. We kicked things off with the focus on deployment and best strategies and followed it with driving into successful adoption, focusing on real world impact. Obviously today, like I said, we're going to be talking about how we can streamline our communication. And then you'll see our three last sessions are focused on operational efficiency, so automation, scalable workforce management, and doing more with less. July 25th sessions focused on customizing the employee experience, integrating third-party and homegrown apps into a unified digital workspace. And then we'll wrap things up with a focus session on AI and agents in the front line. So thinking about automating our workflows, retrieving information, and enabling smarter decision-making. And a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Your microphones will be muted during the presentation. You can submit questions anytime using the Q&A panel at the top of your Teams window. And we'll answer questions live or address the common ones during the Q&A portion at the end. And if you'd like to speak during the open Q&A, please raise your hand and we'll call on you to unmute. All right, so our agenda today will cover 5 topics. First, we'll introduce frontline communications, grounding ourselves in the challenges faced by both frontline workers and communicators. Then we'll dive into 3 key buckets of communications in the organizations. And then we'll take a look at how to set these capabilities up and really enable them for your organization. And we'll take a look into our key takeaways and at our next session, refresh on that. And then finally, we'll jump into our Q&A portion. So just to start off, grounding ourselves in some of that data, frontline workers currently make up 80% of the workforce. It's around 70% of our GDP. They are the main connection to your customers, which means that they can't be left behind as the world and your business continues to change. They need a simple solution that brings key information together in one place that makes it easier and more seamless. Especially relevant for communications, we see that 63% of frontline workers say that leadership communications aren't reaching them, and only 30% of frontline workers feel engaged at work. These are critical disconnects and gaps that are common across organizations and industries. And taking a look at some of those challenges that lead to what we just saw with the 63% of frontline workers saying leadership messages aren't reaching them and that feeling of disconnect, take a look at our frontline workers. So many of them are feeling out of the loop. Frontline staff frequently miss important updates. They don't have as easy access to corporate email. Some have no access to email or intranets during their shifts. Critical news often doesn't reach them in time. They also typically have fragmented tools, different ad hoc solutions or siloed solutions, and they lack a unified tool. And there's also some of these workarounds lead to some non-compliant and siloed communications, such as WhatsApp or chat on our different clients. As we look at other challenges on the front line, we see that there's been traditionally top-down comms have been offering few avenues for frontline workers to ask questions and to share ideas, to really have a feedback loop back to HQ. So they continue to reinforce the feeling of disconnection. Additionally, access and time constraints. Frontline workers, they're fast-paced, hands-on, Typically, many frontline workers are deskless workers, so they're not having a regular desk time. And many of our frontline workers work across many different languages. So there are several different language barriers varying across tech familiarity that can further hinder these understandings. On the communicator side, we think about the prime need of needing to send the right communication at the right time to the right people and at the right level of urgency. So really the ability to reach every worker consistently has been a struggle for many corporate communicators and communicators in general throughout the organization. This workforce is distributed, not often sitting at computers, so it makes it difficult to deliver messages in a timely and targeted way. Again, we saw it on the frontline side, on the frontline worker side, but also communicators. They dealing with different disjointed and one-off solutions, and our workarounds end up relying on non-compliant tools that there is no governance around. And then, of course, when we think about the feedback that they're getting to ensure that their announcements, their messages are being read, are being actioned on, there is often a gap, especially with siloed solutions, to have that unified view of your overall engagement metrics. As we jump into, we'd love to hear from you. Also, if you can type in the chat some of your biggest challenges, if they were not addressed in our previous slide, we'd love to hear which ones you're struggling with the most right now. And feel free to put it, start typing in the chat and we'll keep taking a look at that as we move through our presentation. And so with those challenges, this is where the power of Teams come. So Microsoft Teams empowers both frontline employees and their communicators to get the information and voice when they need it, and organizations gain a reliable way to engage with everyone, from the boardroom to the break room, into one single experience. So taking a look at this, Microsoft Teams Experience for Frontline gives you a single purpose-built solution for all your needs. It's simple, tailored, effective. It gives a home experience for your frontline workers to start their day and access what they need. It allows them, frontline workers and communicators, to communicate and collaborate. Again, from top-down leadership all the way to peer-to-peer communications. It also allows organizations to engage with their community and drive engagement and a sense of belonging. Microsoft offers a simple, integrated solution that connects workers to the tools, knowledge, and people they need to get their jobs done. We also uniquely offer easy communication and collaboration by integrating the world's most popular productivity apps into one unified platform. And so as we jump in, before we jump into our actual examples of the functionality that Teams allows, we'll just do a high-level view of these three buckets that, when we talk about communications, where we're looking at for frontline organizations. So first, on leadership and top-down communication, that is those how do communicators, centralized functions communicate and ensure that their messages are reaching the right audience. Then we have our community and peer engagement, so really fostering a two-way dialogue and a culture within your organizations. And with our peer engagement, make sure that we're leaving it open where they can ask questions, share best practices, and celebrate their success within their own communities. And then our third bucket is around operational and real-time coordination. So really thinking about how we can streamline these day-to-day activities. And we can enable that through many different functionalities of our chats, channels, and our push-to-talk capabilities. So I'll hand it off to Ethan, and he'll jump right into our leadership and top-down communication.
Thank you, Chelsea. So leadership and top-down communication. This is all about aligning and informing every employee from the front line to the headquarters through clear, consistent messaging from leadership. That includes company-wide announcements, executive storytelling, and updates to make sure everyone, regardless of their role or location, understands why behind their work. When this is done well, this type of communication doesn't just inform, it inspires and connects frontline employees to the mission, reinforces priorities, and helps them feel like they're a meaningful part of the company's direction. And with Microsoft 365, we're also making it easier and more scalable than ever before. So let's take a moment to talk about the impact of early engagement on employee orientation and why engage inside teams plays such a critical role. What you're looking here is employee retention over time, segmented by how individuals have interacted with Engage in their first 90 days on the job. We tracked 4 types of behavior: no activity, viewed content, reacted to posts, and actually contributed to their community by writing posts themselves. And the trend is clear. The more active an employee engages, especially those who contribute, the more likely they are to stay. By the 700-day mark, employees that wrote posts in communities in their first 90 days had a 77% retention rate. That's a 33% higher percentage points higher than those with no activity, who just sat at 44. Even lightweight engagement, like viewing and reacting, still saw a notable uplift in retention compared to doing nothing. So what does this tell us? It's not just about getting people to install or opening app. It's about encouraging meaningful participation early on, because that early engagement sets the tone for belonging, connection, and community. And for frontline workers especially, who often don't have email or don't access it, work remotely from corporate headquarters and feel disconnected, this kind of digital participation can be a game changer. Now let's take a look at the impact of leader engagement, especially for the front line. We know that frontline employees often feel disconnected, but they don't sit at desks, they're not reading emails while helping customers or working with machinery, but that doesn't mean they don't care about what's happening at the top. It just means that we need to reach them differently. And this chart shows how powerful that connection it can be when it does happen. After a frontline employee receives a response from their leader, even just a single interaction, their daily engagement jumps by 6% the following week. And it doesn't just stop there. A month later, they're still more engaged, showing a 9% increase in activity on average. This tells us something important. When leaders show up through their storyline or in organizational communities, even briefly, frontline workers notice and they lean in. This kind of interaction sends a signal. You matter. Your voice is heard. Leadership is listening. And the feeling of inclusion and recognition can dramatically shift how a frontline worker sees their role in the company. Don't estimate the power of small, authentic actions from leadership. A comment, a like, a reply. Those are moments that build trust, boost morale, and drive long-term engagement, especially at the edges of the organization where it matters the most. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What happens when leaders consistently show up and engage? The data is clear. When leaders have a high usage of Engage, there's a 30% increase in employee retention. That's not a small lift. It's a major shift in how employees perceive their connection to the company. And this is especially powerful for frontline workers who operate at the very edge, away from corporate comms and away from corporate headquarters. So how are leaders making that impact? 1, they reply to employee posts. They make people feel heard. 2, they align teams with strategic updates, ensuring the field understands the why behind their work. Through events and through announcements, there's no better way than using Engage inside teams. Connecting employees with each other, bringing silos across shifts and sites, and probably most importantly, they model the culture with authenticity, vulnerability, and presence. In fact, leader presence isn't about perfection. In fact, it's often the opposite. It's just about participation. Now let's go deeper into the how behind that impact. Two-way dialogue. It's not enough for leaders to post once and disappear. The leaders who earn trust and confidence, especially amongst the front line, do 4 things well. No jargon, no fluff. They communicate authentically. They respond timely because silence often speaks louder than words. Foster open communication, such as inviting questions, feedback, and participate. And lastly, truly listen, not just react, but respond to what the front line care about. This kind of leadership that resonates with the workforce that's always in motion. For someone that's stacking shelves, driving a bus, or checking in with patients, this kind of dialogue makes them feel seen. And here where it all comes down to: trust. Across roles, across all levels, trust consistently emerges as the most important factor when employees evaluate how well their leaders and companies communicate. At Microsoft, even though we're not a frontline heavy organization, we still see this pattern hold true. When employees say Microsoft does a good job communicating with employees, the number driver is that Microsoft builds trust in its communications. And when employees rate their direct leaders highly, it's because my leader has earned my trust and confidence. So why does this matter for the front line? Because trust matters this much in a tech company full of knowledge workers. Imagine how critical it is for the front line, where communication is harder, less frequent, and often more fragmented. When trust is low, communication feels like noise. But when trust is high, even a short message from a leader can have real weight. That's why platforms like Engage are so powerful. They create more opportunities to build that trust at scale across every layer of the organization. Let's now shift from why leadership engagement matters to how to make it happen. Engage makes it really easy to set up for leaders for success, even though they don't personally have time to post every message or dig through analytics themselves. Here's a simple 3-step process to get started. First, set up your delegate. Identify who can act on behalf of your leader, like a delegate, and probably this is yourself as an admin of your leader. Delegates can help draft content, schedule posts, review analytics, ensuring consistent visibility and presence even though when the leaders are busy. This is especially helpful for execs who want to be active but rely on the comms partners or chiefs of staff to support them. 2, adding your leader to Engage. Once a delegate in place, formally add your leader in Engage. This unlocks features like Leadership Corner, which helps spotlight their content interactions, boosting their visibility across the organization, including to the front line. Lastly, we need to define an audience for their leader. This helps target the right messages to the right people, whether that's a specific region, role, or frontline segment. This also ensures the leader's content is prioritized accordingly in the audience's home feed, email digests, and in connections. And it provides audience-specific analytics to measure their reach and resonance. So even your leader can't be everywhere. This system ensures that their voice still reaches the people that need to hear it. Let's take a look at setting up delegates. So inside Engage or inside Teams on desktop. Let me just make sure this plays. Just click on the ... and can enter delegate management. And here you'll see you can just add a delegate. You see mine right here, and you can add Alex as a delegate. There's a concept of a delegate who can directly post on behalf of Megan or a manager. So this is great for chief of staff who owns a collection of delegates. Now, Alex, now that he's added, can also have storyline access where he can upload pictures to my OneDrive and post on my behalf on my storyline directly. Oops. Next, we're going to set up the leader. So how do we identify leaders? So first, we have to go to the Engage Admin Center to set up, and we have to go to the Leadership Identification page. Go down to your leaders, add yourself as a leader. And then here, you can set your audience. So for example, as Nestor, you can set up your audience as the IT team and add everyone via a group or by named list of people. So for example, hey, the IT department or the IT department in the store can be all nested under one DL or just named individually. Now that this is all set up, let's talk about the two most powerful ways a leader can communicate directly and engage: through storyline announcements and posts. Storyline announcements are designed for maximum reach and speed. There are these messages that cut through the noise, ideal for moments that matter most. So for like a company milestone, an urgent update, or a vision-setting message. When a leader publishes an announcement, it's delivered across apps like Outlook, Teams, and Engage. It goes directly to their followers, so showing up in the preferred app, and it's prioritized in their feeds and digests. And it reaches the audience within hours, typically under 8. On the other hand, there's storyline posts. Think of them as more like an everyday version, but still powerful with a longer engagement window. These are great for small updates, reflections, shoutouts, or storytelling that builds culture over time. Posts are also prioritized, but it has a slightly longer reach window, typically a day or two. They're sent to followers wherever they prefer to engage, such as in Teams, and posts also will eventually show up in connections too. The key difference is that announcements are high priority, fast bursts of alignment. Posts, on the other hand, are just steady rhythm of leadership presence and storytelling. And together, they give leaders a full toolkit for staying connected, especially with frontline teams who depend on these async communications. And as leaders begin communicating more actively, it's just as important to understand how these messages are landing. This is where storyline conversation analytics comes in. This view gives you a clear, at-a-glance dashboard of how well a leadership post or announcement is performing, something especially valuable when you're trying to reach a distributed or frontline team. Let me call out a few key metrics here. There is reach. Reach shows how many people saw the post, right here, and breaks that down between the general audience or how many followers it hit. Engagement shows how many people interacted with the post, whether they reacted, commented, or bookmarked, or followed the conversation. And this funnel on the right here gives you a breakdown of how people are interacting, from likes and comments to deeper actions like bookmarking and sharing. All of this gives communications teams and delegates powerful insights, not just on what content is performing well, but who it's reaching and what's driving the most value. And for leadership communications targeting frontline workers in particular, this kind of feedback loop is essential. It helps you tune your tone, optimize timing, and refine messaging strategy based on real engagement, not assumptions. And when you can measure it, you can improve it. And that's exactly what these analytics are designed to support. Now, next, as a leader, you can review your audience's analytics. So trends and themes over time rather than a single post. Let's take a look. Is this loading properly? Well, I think the animation and the background is kind of screwing around. But at the top, we kind of see through here, there's a quick snapshot of overall sentiment at the top right here. This helps you quickly gauge the mood of your audience, including targeted groups like specific frontline teams. Below that, you'll see trending themes surfaced by AI. So topics like morale, you see here, or team offsite, or supply chain issues gives you a pulse of what's top of mind. And for each theme, you can see actual conversations. You can kind of see a preview of it here, automatically surfaced by AI. Topics like morale or team offsite gives you a pulse of what's top of mind. And for each theme, you see the actual conversations complete with sentiment, views, and engagement. I think it's right here. And this insight is key. It helps leaders and communicators stay ahead of issues, amplify what's working, and it's all based off of real employee voice, not guesswork. And finally, to close the loop on audience insights, Viva Engage now includes theme moderation, a powerful tool for proactively managing emerging conversations at scale. This feature lets communicators and admins define key themes or keywords they want to monitor, like product launch or wellness. Once set, the AI scans in conversations in real time and flag any matching discussions. You could auto-mute sensitive threads to keep them out of feeds and digests, get real-time alerts when a theme is triggered, and use the dashboard to review and manage flag conversations with full context. This is especially useful for large or frontline heavy orgs where visibility is limited and volume's high. Theme moderation helps you stay ahead of the narrative and not just react to it. And here, the last section is on advanced moderation in Viva Engage. Here, I'm logged in as Mona, corporate communicator at Contoso. I can go to the communications dashboard. This is a new feature, and I have access to the new advanced moderation page. This includes AI-powered moderation that allows me to create a theme to track Copilot adoption across the organization. And I can add a few of my colleagues on my team to receive notifications. We can now see posts across our organization that our team can amplify and follow. Notice none of these posts are using the word Copilot adoption specifically, though. Now I have to do another pulse check on if the video is loading correctly for everyone in here. Perfect. It's not loading well for me, so I'm gonna have to kind of follow along a little bit. So you'll see now that kind of uses Copilot adoption specifically, posts are in French, and they'll just show up in the dashboard just right away. Here I can dismiss one of these posts as I don't think they are a part of Copilot adoption. But also, this feature also allows inappropriate posts to not reach mass audiences. And you can go in and create an offensive language theme and set the auto mute capability. I hope this is playing for everyone, but if not, this is recorded and it will be kind of posted in just about a week or two once we kind of clean up the slides for distribution. And wrapping all of this up is Leadership Corner. Leadership Corner is a dedicated space in the Engage app that helps employees like Mona here stay informed about updates about their company leaders all in one place. It'll pull together all the things we talked about today so far, announcements and posts and messages from all the leaders that the employee follows and surfaces them in a focused, mobile-friendly view in Teams. Perfect for frontline who might not have time to dig through multiple channels. With Leadership Corner, we're making it easier than ever to connect with leaders, with the people they serve, and to build trust and alignment at scale. With that, I think it's time to wrap up with the leaders, and then we have the next section on the community and peer engagement. This is more than just about sharing updates. It's about empowering frontline workers to connect with one another, ask questions, share best practices, and celebrate wins. These peer-to-peer conversations build culture, trust, and belonging, and communities inside Engage are designed to foster that kind of two-way dialogue at scale. Engage supports a wide variety of community types, each designed to meet different collaboration needs across your organization. There's organizational communities that mirror your formal structure. So departments like a plumbing department, divisions, and regions, and are often private and membership assigned at scale. There's support and shared services, such as centralized spaces for companies to get help or ask policy questions like HR and immigration Q&A. Communities of practice, where people go to learn, share best practices, and connect with peers in similar roles or functions. Some of these are public, some of them are private, depending on the organization. And there's also special interest communities that foster culture and inclusion from ERGs, employee resource groups, or hobby groups. These often build a strong sense of belonging across the front line and office-based employees alike. And finally, you can also add credibility and visibility to your most important groups with official communities. Admins or users with corporate communications role can mark a community as an official one, which adds a visual badge and elevates its presence across Engage. So things like company-wide events and news, co-pilot previews, diversity and inclusion programs are kind of some common ones we see at our organizations that use them. You can also brand these communities with custom images and clearly define your own criteria or what official means in your organization. Ultimately, this helps employees find out which communities they can trust for the most accurate, high-value information. Let's have a quick click through for our communities per walkthrough. So here we see Alex as a store associate. Now more than ever, people want to feel included. They want to feel belong. So they see the Engage app, the Communities app within Teams. You'll see within Teams, frontline workers can join communities, they can connect workers and scroll across the home feed, which brings together the different communities and different communities they're part of. And I think we're seeing another instance of PowerPoint Live having troubles with the animations here. So let's just skip through. You'll see here, you'll see communities list kind of right here conveniently next to your feed if you want to drill into all the different areas that you are interested in and you've marked as favorites or just the rest of the community you're a part of. And you'll see some are in D&I, some are just kind of, as we talked about, organization-based, and some are, of course, interest-based. Oops. And then you can also connect across stores. Here we have, hey, managers at Woodgrove. So our little small organization, we can bring people of experts of different locations, people that normally wouldn't be talking on a regular basis. We also have the support for community question and answers so that we can figure out, hey, who knows exactly what the right policy is for a specific item, what's the official, you can mark things as official, and see here, you can look up the best answers as well across your across the questions that other people have across your frontline organization that have been previously answered. And this is critical because a lot of knowledge is just kind of in the heads and not necessarily documented, and connecting people across shifts, across time zones, across locations is more important than ever to bring all these skill sets across. And then communities also have their set of announcements and posts, but tailored for just peer-to-peer driven communication. Community announcements are just like storyline announcements or high priority messages. They also go to Engage directly and in Teams. If not, we also delay send them to Outlook as well. They're great for time-sensitive updates within your community or urgent calls to action. Posts are more casual and more conversation. They're just kind of through the feed, as we saw earlier, through a digest, and also through the Engage app inside Vivix. So we can engage carded connections. Key difference, announcements are fast broadcasts, whereas posts are kind of more organic and ongoing dialogue. And both keep community stay active and relevant and keep everyone connected throughout the front line. New is a feature that's about to start rolling out is multi-language posts. And it's one of the most important features we have coming this year for the global and frontline teams. Engage now lets you post and translate into multiple languages. You can draft in all the languages you need a formal post for and set a default. This removes friction and inclusivity, ensure no one's left out, and of course helps with compliance into many of our multi-regional organizations where you can set English as a default or French as a default, depending on who your audience is. And with that, that's kind of the end of the community section. I'm going to bring it back to Chelsea on operational and real-time comms.
Thank you. Great look into our leadership top-down and to our community and peer engagement, especially when we think of communities of practice with Frontline. It's so critical that they have that engagement. So yeah, let's shift gears and talk about our third pillar of Frontline communications, operational and real-time coordination. So this is where communication meets action, where Frontline teams need to move fast, stay aligned, and solve problems on the fly. Whether it's a shift handover, a safety alert, or quick check-in with a supervisor, these moments demand tools that are immediate, intuitive, and secure. This bucket is all about enabling frontline workers to communicate in the flow of work without needing to switch apps or rely on consumer tools like WhatsApp. With Microsoft Teams, everything happens in one place: chats, announcements, voice, and more. So let's walk through some of what this looks like in action. All right, first, announcements. This is a perfect place to share timely updates with the right people without overloading everyone else. So using Teams, communicators can send announcements targeted by employee attributes like role, location, or department. And that means a store manager in London sees a different message than a warehouse lead in New York, and both get exactly what they need at the time that they need it. These announcements can also be sent via location-based channels or channels based off of a topic or grouping of your desire. You can post announcements directly into these channels, and they show up with rich formatting, images, and even some, and along with some tracking, especially around engagement tracking. Here's an example of an announcement posted to a location-based Teams channel, and you can notice how it's pinned and easy to find. So during a busy shift, they can see it right when they either come into their home experience or receive a notification in the middle of that shift. Next, we'll jump into more real-time communication with our one-on-one and group chats. So Teams supports both one-on-one and group chats, which are essential for that quick coordination, whether it's a supervisor checking in with a team member or a group chat for the morning shift. These conversations are fast, searchable, and secure, unlike our consumer messaging apps that especially around moderation and compliance, may cause some concern with your organization. One thing that we'd like to highlight as part of our chats is our translation. So earlier we talked about one of those communication barriers around language, especially even with local teams all the way through regional teams, they may be spanning many different languages. So here in our chats channels, you also saw it as Ethan talked about our communities, we are enabling to remove those language barriers. So here is a great example. In this morning team, it's basically a shift-based group chat. You'll see that someone, his message is coming in Spanish to a English native speaker. And so they have the ability to select translate, and then that message will translate to their language that's already set in Teams, set up upon using Teams. and it will translate there in real time. You can also do this with channels as well. That example was in our chats. And one really great thing where not even a single tap is needed is the ability to auto translate. So a setting within everyone's Teams application, you can come in and set that messages in chats and channels across Teams are auto translated. So you'll see here, we set that translate messages into Spanish. And so all messages, this is the announcement that we saw earlier about earlier sent from our regional manager. You can see here in the top right corner of that channel post, that message, that it was auto-translated. So again, trying to make this seamless and powerful to support diverse groups within your teams, regions, and organizations. We'll jump into another capability within our Teams communications for our real-time collaboration. We'll talk about Walkie Talkie. So this feature turns any mobile device into a secure push-to-talk radio. No extra hardware is needed. It's perfect for urgent, hands-free communication. A warehouse worker can instantly reach a supervisor, or a retail associate can call backup without leaving the floor. And because it's built in Teams, it's secure, compliant, and integrated with the rest of your communication tools. It's easy to set up, uh, easy to connect to one or many channels. No dialing, no waiting, just quick, direct communication. And this helps teams move faster, assist customers on the spot, and keep store operations running smoothly. We'll jump into, I'll hand it back off to Ethan to talk through some deployment and setup of these capabilities.
There we go. Thank you, Chelsea, for that. And to get this all set up on the Teams and Walkie Talkie, we actually talked about this a couple weeks ago in the first session. So please go check back out. I think the meeting recording is already out for that one. However, to set up the rest of the kind of the larger Teams ecosystem, and especially the Engage portion, there's a lot of roles to kind of be aware of. And as we are aware, there's a lot of different sub roles even within your organizations too. And we kind of try to do their best to make it easy. So you have the global administrator that administers all of Microsoft 365. And then there's the Engage administrator that engage. But there's also the network administration. These are ones that we can set and engage. And the rest you can do from the Microsoft Admin Center. So corporate communicator role you can add, or the community administrator roles to kind of help split up the work of managing all these communications at scale, so that someone in the corporate comms org can set up their leadership chain and audiences, and someone in a specific employee resource group can manage the communications within a community specifically. The corporate communicator role is a relatively new one that we have rolled out, and it allows a variety of different things that you can do with it that we kind of split out from the existing admin roles based off of feedback. They're responsible for identifying leaders and audiences, marking communities as official, closing conversations, muting content from feeds or digests because they're controversial or we don't kind of want them published as widely, and creating and managing official campaigns with full analytics. And this role empowers them to kind of run structured engagement programs without the tenant level access that typically an IT org may own at your organization, and really empower the corp comms team to do what they need. As well, when it comes to governance, Engage includes a lot of moderation tools available to creators of posts, consumer of posts, and moderators. So creators can just close their own conversations if they feel like the discussion's not needed, or delete their own content if they feel like it's not giving the right vibes. Consumers can report posts or mute noisy communities that they're not as interested in. But content moderators or admins can move conversations, mute communities, delete threads, and so on. Especially those customers with E5 licensing, communications compliance also provides another layer of advanced tooling on top. You can operate on these engaged chats. And as hinted before earlier, the communications dashboard just released, and we brought a lot of the features all kind of in one home that you would find in an admin center or just in a dot, dot, dot in an overflow menu somewhere in the Engage experience or in the Teams experience. So here we see that, hey, you have an overview, your new conversations, hey, you can bring the organization analytics and all the advanced moderation we talked about earlier, all kind of in one page, especially the ones in your communities that you own or manage and the campaigns that are running. And this is available now. It's a brand new feature. I encourage those that are already have Engage on to check it out. As well, with the Frontline, dynamic community membership is also something that's super important. How do we scale to tens of thousands of frontline workers? So Entra ID already offers comprehensive ID management. You can apply rules that apply to engaged communities. So as people join and leave, for example, a specific store or a specific role or location, these can automatically join and leave communities. And doing all of that saves a lot of time for you in any role, whether you're an IT position or corporate comms or even a manager, a store manager role or region manager role, as it keeps you focused on the communications part rather than managing who gets it. With that, I think we're back to Chelsea to help us wrap up on some next steps.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we close out, we've opened talking about some of those scarier percentages around communication and the challenges of feeling disconnected and generally not staying up to date or knowing how effective your communications were on the communicator side. So when we take a look, we see that as we invest in our frontline, it's also an investment in your organization and your business. We can see here some of these increased productivities, fewer mistakes, ultimately happier customers, which drive a lot of that bottom line revenue that we look at. We'd like to highlight some of the customers that we see across industries, different organizations that are transforming how they connect with their frontline. You can see some highlighted, and these are all linked out to different examples, again, across different industries. And this is where Teams is helping organizations unify their communication, streamline their operations, and build stronger cultures. One standout example that we like to highlight is with Domino's. They're especially with different segmentation challenges that they had across many different time zones, different languages, and many different countries. Bringing Teams and using Engage to power that has really brought in all of these potential areas for sharing knowledge, inspiring the communities, and generally just engaging with their frontline workforce. And so that's what the power of Teams with Engage bring everyone into that one single platform on our teams. So power of connected communication when every voice can be heard and every team can move forward together. And coming back to a look at what's ahead, again, next week or next session, we're going to be focusing on operational efficiency. So how can we scale, quickly go through different process automations, measure and optimize, followed by understanding how we can customize these experiences and connect our homegrown apps or third-party apps within that experience for frontline organizations, and then wrap up really focusing on how we can enable our workforce and transform with the power of AI. And then if you want to put in chat we kind of went over those different upcoming topics, but we'd also like to know, is there anything else that you'd like to learn about? Maybe something, a deeper dive of what we covered today. Communications is such a broad topic, and there's a lot that we can dig really deep into. Or maybe you just haven't seen it of our 6 sessions. Is there anything else that may be relevant for you and your organization you'd like to learn more? Please put it in the chat if there are. And we have some resources that will also, that Chelsea had linked earlier in the chat. And many of them are here in our presentation. And then we'd love to get some of your feedback. So please feel free to scan our QR code and give some feedback on this session. Well, I guess we'll close out our session today.
Thank you so much for attending.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening. Bye, everyone.